Hey, welcome to Bedside Manners, Travel Nursing Unhinged, the podcast where we talk about the ins and outs, everything you need to know about travel nursing. We talk to current travelers. We have guests constantly coming and going, experts in the industry. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to Bedside Manners, Travel Nursing Unhinged. My name's Corey. With me, as always, is Mr. Paul Ulrich. Paul, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Corey. How are you?
Oh, it's a lovely day, sun shining, recruiting nurses, always a good day. So we got a fun show for you guys today. Remember, with us is a little later in the show is Todd Greer, the male NICU nurse. Ladies. Today we're going to talk about a really interesting subject, VA montage interviews, auto offers. This is a trend we're starting to see more and more facilities using VA interviews and montage interviews. Paul, let's jump into it.
Yeah. What is a VA interview or a montage interview? VA interviews it stands for Voice Advantage. And what it is, it's an email-based interview that once you get submitted to a job and they see that you are a viable candidate to the position that you were submitted to, you will get this email-based interview. It could be a couple of different things, but mostly you may have to fill out a couple of questionnaires, like a checklist based on your specialty.
Yeah.
And then you'll get after that you will get a PIN number and you'll call into a voice line and you'll record a few questions and those questions are going to be more like work ethic.
Yeah, they're more basic interview questions, like how in your past or how in your career have you dealt with a problematic patient or an aggressive patient, things
or
like
a
that.
fellow coworker or stuff like that.
And generally these VA interviews, they're going to send them to you based on what your profile looks like, what your resume looks like. So you want to make sure you have an up-to-date profile with your agency and everything's, all your skills are on there because that's what they're going to send these VA interviews based on.
Yeah.
So now who's doing these? Like I said, we're seeing a shift in this. More and more facilities, more and more hospital systems are sending these out. Kaiser is one of them.
Yep.
Providence is one of them. Tenet is one of them.
Yep.
And reason that we're seeing this is it's efficient. Honestly,
it is.
It makes things a lot easier. I've gotten offers from them. Paul, I know you have.
It's very nice. And some people like them and some people hate them. But it's all about communication with your recruiter, and sometimes you will get a chance to talk to the nurse manager. A lot of places will have phone interviews after you complete these, which is great. But if not, you got to be prepared to, accept an auto offer, which, isn't really communicated to a lot of nurses. And so just ask your recruiter if this is an auto offer facility or will I get a chance to actually talk to the nurse manager. But no, I mean, it's efficient because sometimes nurse managers don't actually always get to or have time to interview.
In interviews, if you're a traveler, you know that nurse managers are going to call you when it's convenient for them. If you're night shift, it is tough to get those interviews. And so why a lot of facilities are moving over to this VA, this montage interview system, there's no more missed calls. There's no more missed interviews. There's not missed opportunities for you. So you get to set the time, hey, this is when I'm free to do this interview.
Yep.
As with anything, a lot of times, with interviews, it's the first nurse to interview that gets it.
Yep.
This kind of helps you not miss an opportunity. But
usually you have 24 hours to complete the montage or VA interview or else it will expire.
Mm-hmm. And again, what Paul touched on before was sometimes auto offers are made. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but what we mean by that is based on your VA interview, you may not even talk to a manager. They may just say, hey, we like this profile. She answered the questions. He answered the questions how we want. We want to make this offer to him.
Yeah.
So again, communication with your recruiter is key. You shouldn't be submitting to these jobs unless you're ready to commit to it.
Yep. And you're okay with not talking to a nurse manager. And you can, if you really want to talk to a nurse manager, I mean, I've had some of my nurses, call in after they accepted an offer and get to know the manager. I know that's scary. Well, I've already signed a contract. Well, I get that. Yeah. But, and it's just, it's fine. If you're not comfortable, then that's, I wouldn't, have that deter you away from it. Do your research on the facility. Ask your fellow travelers. Ask your recruiter.
And
You have
ask your,
anybody
hey,
there?
if we do this VA interview, is it an auto offer? Am I going to be able to
Yeah.
talk to a manager? And I've had cases where it was a VA interview, was auto offer, but still said, hey, she wants to talk to a manager. Manager called. They went over the nitty gritty details,
Mhm.
and ended up loving the assignment.
Yeah.
So it's all communication. Again, research, ask questions.
Yep.
That's the big thing. Don't submit to these VA interviews unless you're ready to commit. Talk to your recruiter. But like we said, Kaiser, Tenet, what are the other ones
Oh,
that we're doing?
Providence.
Providence, all these facilities. Every Kaiser facility is going to do a VA interview now.
Yep.
And
MedStar,
more we're
DC.
seeing MedStar DC. We're seeing that big shift in the industry, just like with other things, just like CSTs needing that certification. You know,
Yeah.
we always see shifts in trends.
Compact states.
Like we talked about last week. We want to see there are shifts that we see, so we just want to keep everybody up to date.
Yeah. Yeah. The main thing is go with the flow. Let the
Yeah.
river take you where it wants to go.
Follow the river,
Follow the
wherever
river.
it takes you. Awesome, guys. Well, we got Todd walking in the office right now, so we're gonna go grab him and we're gonna get him set up.
All right.
All right, we got Todd in here. We got him all set up. Todd, welcome to our podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's nice to finally meet you in person. Put
Me too.
a face to the voice. So we're just gonna ask you some questions, keep it informal, and yeah, we'll see where it takes us. So, first question: why did you become a nurse?
Just kind of hit that point in my life. I needed to make some changes, and everything kind of lined up and fell into it. Worked out great.
Awesome. And
Good.
now, the big one too that that I would see is being a male nurse in a predominantly or historically female dominated environment. Have you struggled with that, or have you had to work harder being a male nurse, or tell us about that.
I would say on my day to day, it's actually been great. The girls that I do work with, they've all been very helpful. With with the unit that I normally work in, it's always a little bit odd to see a guy in a NICU setting, but the girls there have been great. Every once in a while, you kind of run into like the gender issue, taking care of moms, and I completely understand that. And we find ways to work around it. So
Yeah, that was leads right into the next question was I know being your recruiter, we've certainly had that issue with with the floating requirement that comes with most assignments and dealing with that. But why NICU? Like what drew you into that specialty?
it wasn't my initial plan when I first started school. Um, Towards the end of graduation, like five or six things all kind of lined up. I had an interview even before I took my NCLEX. They were pretty desperate for nurses. So I got in there and, hit the ground running and haven't looked back. It's been great.
Awesome.
It's kind of like a hidden gem. Like, most people are like a guy, NICU.
Yeah. I remember with the first time we talked, I was like telling I think Paul and Tom, I was like, just got off the phone with a male NICU nurse. Like, what, male NICU? What are you talking about? And like, no, you didn't. I was like, I did. So it's certainly it's rare. You're the only male NICU nurse that I know that I talk to. So that's cool. I really like that you're in that specialty, and it's definitely unique. Paul, I'm sure you've got a question
Yeah.
or two.
Yeah. That's great that you're not running into many objections. Especially being, if you ever have to float to postpartum or, and so that could be quite different. And I was actually having this conversation with one of my other nurses the other night. And told him that we are going to have a male NICU nurse on the show, and she's like, "Well, what's the difference with a gyne doctor?" It's like, well, that's a good question,
That gets thrown out a lot, but surprisingly, there's a difference between an MD and a nurse, and
it's just title.
It's amazing that the discrepancy with that. But,
yeah, it shouldn't be like that, but
if that's the only thing you have to worry about, I'm good.
Good. Well, and on your traveling, what is the best part of traveling for you?
Getting out and seeing different places more than just a couple days. Like I lived in Ohio all my life, so getting out I was in Seattle and then went to Monterey and now Colorado
Nice.
Springs. It's a great way to visit the states, spend a little bit extra time to find, those hidden restaurants or those hidden places to go, and just maybe look where I'm gonna retire at someday.
Nice. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that being from South Dakota. So that's different being out here in Denver.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite restaurant that you found?
Yeah, what's the best hidden gem for
Um,
restaurants that you found?
there, I think it was called the Mountain Cafe. It was just a couple miles from St. Francis Hospital. Best breakfast I've ever had, and they have these huge pancakes. I mean, it's the size of a pizza.
Wow.
Um, Definitely recommend you if you're ever there in the morning, hit it up for breakfast.
In the Springs,
This
right?
is-
Yes.
yeah.
Nice. Oh yeah, we'll have to check that
Awesome.
out.
Any other like gems that you found, in Seattle or Monterey, like activities? Like what'd you do for fun on? I know we were talking before when we first walked in about fly fishing in Colorado. What other activities do you like doing, or just finding time outside of the hospital?
When I was up in Seattle, I spent a lot of time going up to the Cascades, hiked a couple of the mountaintop lakes, went fly fishing there. Went down to Monterey. I ended up getting to Big Sur a couple times, down to Pfeiffer Beach, and I think it was McAway Falls. Totally different scenery than Ohio, which
Yeah.
was awesome. Tried surfing in Monterey, so wasn't expecting to do that in January, but the weather
Yeah.
was quite pleasant. So
Perfect.
Don't they have like a different winter summer schedule in Monterey or something weird?
I'm not too familiar with it exactly. I know that they got like a record amount of rainfall this winter. And I mean, I just miss, I guess, all the springtime, like blooms everywhere. Kind of miss that. But winter in Monterey was much better than winter in Ohio.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
I bet.
Yeah. So now I know we've talked about this and kind of the struggles of being a traveler and advice. Now that you've got a few assignments under your belt, you're on just wrapped up your third assignment, headed into your fourth in a few weeks. Knowing kind of what you know now, what advice, or even better, if you go back in time and talk to yourself before we started talking, or even before you took that first assignment, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Um, well, come up with a system to get organized. Just trying to keep all the paperwork, your certificates, just everything for work. It really, I don't have an office. My car is sometimes my office. So trying to get all of that straightened out can be challenging, but going into my fourth assignment, I definitely can get it done a lot quicker.
Awesome.
Nice.
So, I kind of want to step back. Talking, I mean, we were talking about NICU earlier, and every time I talk to a NICU nurse, it's just I think that would be one of the hardest specialties next to peds oncology.
Yeah.
Just sick babies. I mean, how do you? I mean, spiritually, do you handle that? Was it a learning curve that you had to, or what advice would you give to a nurse coming out of nursing school that wants to get a NICU?
The learning curve was uh, huge. I went into it with man hands. All the girls that I worked with when I first started, they they said just keep with it, you will get it. And the training, I think, was 3 months just in orientation. So I mean, it was
Oh, wow.
long.
Wow.
The first 6 months was rough. I remember making a comment to a couple friends like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this cut or not. But I kept with it, and things do get better. It's just don't be afraid to ask questions. Be observant of everything, and push through it.
And like now, again, fourth assignment. What do you find like transitions from hospital to hospital? Is there a different learning curve at each facility you go to? Are things drastically different on the units, or is it pretty like streamlined?
It really depends on the facility. A lot of it can be streamlined. Overall, the core set of care that we provide is pretty much uniform, but every facility kind of has their own limits or guidelines that if you're talking about a kid with bilirubin jaundice, they might have different parameters. So you going from one hospital to another, it gets a little confusing to keep all of those numbers straight.
Right.
But overall, the girls that I've worked with have been great. They, ask a question, they've always been helpful. So as long as you stick with the core concept of the cares that you provide and try to follow the facility guidelines, it's not too bad.
What about orientations? Tell us a little bit about. I know you and I have talked about this, but again, just want to give our listeners some advice on what to expect with a typical orientation. And you've got 3 under your belt now, so
Again, that really just depends on each facility. When I was in Seattle, they had no unit manager. There was really no type of management at all. So it was really kind of thrown together and rushed. Here in Colorado Springs, they put us through a full week of orientation that all of their normal staff would go through. So overall, the transition was pretty easy here. It's really just, you got to get through that first week or so, find your footing, and you find out who you can talk to and get good information from and go from there.
Awesome. Paul, what do you got?
Oh man, with traveling, you've got 4 assignments underneath your belt now.
3.
And you where are you going to next now?
Fresno,
California. Let's what about housing? How have you overcome
Hey,
housing?
You've always found housing. You found housing in Monterey. Which
that's one of the
was
biggest hurdles of travel nursing. How do I find cheap housing?
especially first time traveler. I mean,
Yes.
you found it. You jumped right into it. So
Yeah.
tell us that.
that's been the hardest aspect because I don't want to find housing until I have a contract from the hospital. But normally when that happens, you have such a small window. So I've had pretty good luck using Airbnb. Cheap housing is not really there, but at least if you get something through Airbnb, you have an idea of what you're going to be living or what environment you're going to be in, where you can get like a stock kitchen. I like to cook.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps. But when I came to Colorado Springs, I almost got taken by a scam. Found out last minute. So I avoided that, but Airbnb at least is
Secure.
yes.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely difficult.
Yeah, I actually had one of my nurses get scammed on Craigslist. It was just kind of like, stay away from Craigslist.
Yeah.
The hardest thing that I found, because I work nights, is finding a place that doesn't have a dog on the premises. I love dogs, but not after a horrible night and 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
It gets difficult.
Yeah. Well, good.
Todd, is there anything you want to tell us? A favorite thing about travel nursing, worst thing about travel nursing, best experience, worst experience, best advice you could give to new travelers?
That's a lot of questions.
Pick one.
It took me a long time to really make that final step and to get into it. Now I've been gone since last August. It's been great. I definitely would do it again. I wish I would have done it sooner. That's kind of one of the things that everybody says.
Mhm.
But as far as advice, ask questions, get to know other travelers. Everybody, word of mouth travels fast. There's, I think, a Facebook group for traveling nurses and everything. And just find a system to get organized and pack light.
Awesome. Yeah, we will do a podcast on that, on staying organized, tips and tricks from the recruiting side.
Packing.
Packing cells for backpacks I found worked well. But as a new dad, I've got a sweet joke for you guys. So I'm practicing my dad jokes. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
HIPAA.
HIPAA who?
I can't tell you that. Here all week.
It's over.
All right. Well, that wraps up our show for today. Again, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Todd, thanks for coming in.
Yes,
to
thank you
join
so
us.
much, Todd.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And again, if you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email at bedsidemanners@gowithadvanced.com. Each episode show notes are available on our website at gowithadvanced.com/bedside manners. Special thanks to Jonathan Carey for helping produce this episode and Aiden Dykes for the music and editing. And of course, each episode is powered by Advanced Travel Nursing. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.